Hi and welcome to the Firefly Adda, your virtual conversation starter, a platform where we showcase different thought leaders and bring out insights and learnings. In today's episode, we talk about the chefs and the food industry and how this pandemic has actually sort of affected this industry and the chefs overall. So it's lockdown 4.0, and the malls and restaurants are still in a limbo. Everything is sort of shut down, and the nature of the business is as such that it is actually very people specific. And this is one of the industries which is actually the worst hit. So for long, we've actually done celebrated, our anniversaries, our birthdays at these restaurants, and now if you actually see, it's all gone into isolation, and nobody's sort of looking at stepping in to these restaurants, and that has actually affected this business tremendously. So the idea of today's conversation is more or less to sort of understand what is actually happening in the F&B industry, and we would want to go ahead and talk to one of our guests today who actually belongs to this industry. So please welcome Tarang Bhargav, executive sous chef, Taj Exotica and Spa, Maldives. Tarang, hi and welcome to the Firefly Adda.
Hi.
So great to have you here, Tarang, all the way from Maldives. Thank you so much for being gracious and accepting our request to be a part of the show. So very tough and challenging times, especially for the F&B industry and the hotel that you're working for. I'm pretty sure you're also facing the same pinch that most of the people in the F&B industry are. So the idea of today's conversation would be more or less to understand your personal journey into being a chef, and maybe derive a few good insights from you in the existing challenges that the food industry and the chefs like you are actually facing right now. So let's just go ahead and get a little understanding of who you are, and to understand a little bit more about you. So if you can actually quickly talk through about a bit about you, and how did you end up being a chef, and what are your thoughts around your profession, and what was your inspiration like, and how has the journey been so far? Could you maybe shed some light on that?
Uh, well, uh, my mom always said food is always a journey which you need to explore. And my journey in this food industry started back in my childhood, sitting at the kitchen platform, looking my mom cooking scrumptious meals. Uh, it was my mother actually who inspired me to pursue my passion into a profession. And ever since then, it's been going on. And my family was quite supportive. Actually, I decided to become a chef when I was at 12, and so they were quite encouraging in that aspect. And then I could pursue my education in hotel management, and it just went on. And tough job though. You've got to have good people around you to support you in these causes. My wife was also very supportive. She was also from hospitality background, so she was quite supportive. Kept on motivating me to strive to reach the next level. So that's how my journey's been, and it's been 13 years now in this industry, and it's going strong and good.
Fantastic. So, Tarang, from a specialty perspective, so what are your specialities like, and how do you like experimenting in the way you actually sort of prepare your delicacies? So, anything that you would want to maybe share around that?
Well, Asian cuisine, particularly Japanese, is my forte. I have been trained in teppanyaki, so I love enjoying. I enjoy teppanyaki cooking as well. It displays your culinary skills as well, your entertaining skills as well at the same time. So I've done teppanyaki for a couple of almost 4 5 years that I did teppanyaki before I moved into mainstream kitchen. And experimenting with ingredients is always my prime motive. That's always there as a chef, where it helps you to increase the horizon to excel in, and with different ingredients, different flavors comes out your different recipes. So experimenting as a chef is always the best thing that you could do.
Fantastic. Now, anything which is creative will actually get the road rolling. And what are the creative thoughts which actually goes on in a chef's mind? So, do you actually think out of the box always in your preparation, or do you believe in going the conventional route?
Well, food industry is something very volatile, and you've got to keep updated with new trends. And thinking out of the box is something which is like you need to inculcate as a habit. And things like we keep doing different things, trying different dishes, rather than going with the mainstream dishes. Like because nowadays what happens is the client and the guest are much educated. They keep abreast with a lot of new trends, and the comparison is always there. So you need to be up with the beat with all the new trends. And taste, uniqueness of local ingredients, that's something which is of prime importance.
Great. So, how has the journey been so far for you? You've done your hotel management, and you're 13 years into this industry. So, how has it been so far for you? Has it been very fulfilling? Has it been the right choice for you in terms of your profession?
It's been quite rewarding though. uh, Beginning of my career was quite challenging, well, because what happens is when you are in a hotel management, you know have a different perspective of hotel industry. It looks quite glamorous, it is glamorous, but then the hardship and the rigorous dedication that's required in it comes only when you get on the job. And once you survive that period, I mean, that's the best thing. uh, with Especially as a chef, it requires a lot of passion that involves. So if you have the passion in you, you can go far.
Absolutely. I think passion is the right word you actually use there, and kudos to you for coming this far. Now there are a lot of these aspirations that people have. A lot of people aspire to be chefs like you. So these are sort of lockdown times for many of us. So is there any sort of a medium or a platform that they can actually go to understand what does it actually take to be a chef just like you? So any sort of tips or tricks that you can actually provide to budding chefs or people who want to actually get into the food and beverage industry?
Actually, this is the best time to explore your expertise, where there are a lot of online courses that are there these days, with a lot of workshops that happen. One of such courses is what I went through actually. We have a lot of interns in, and they quite go through. One of the courses was from Leeds, Leith. Basically it helps you with the essential cooking skills. So that's something if some budding chefs would love to have that workshop done, helps you, clears off your basics and uh, set techniques.
So great. I think we'll maybe capture a few more from you and maybe put that in the description when we actually get this video out. And the next thing that I want to actually ask is any positive thoughts or any success mantra that you would want to leave for the audiences here?
Well, believe in your dreams. That's the best.
No, absolutely. So, great thoughts there. So, I think we're doing this a little differently in my show. Or usually, this is the last question, but we've actually sort of tweaked that a little bit because we're actually breaking this conversation into two parts. So now maybe we'll actually talk about part two, where we talk about this pandemic and how it has actually affected the chefs and the food industry overall. And this industry overall has been the most badly affected, and the government hasn't really come out with any safe package for the people who are actually involved in this industry. So the other day I was actually looking at an interview, and a lot of the F&B experts are actually sort of crying out for help from the government to actually bail them out, but there's not really any package which is actually announced for this industry very specifically. So it has been treated in a very indifferent way, not to a liking of a lot of the people. So with that perspective in mind, I think it becomes relevant to maybe dive into a few of the questions which actually revolve around this topic of COVID-19 and how chefs in the food industry is sort of shaping up to this pandemic. So with that in mind, what would be the eating out experience look like post the lockdown, and during these post COVID times, or even during the COVID times? So what is your take on that? Social distancing being the norm, people wearing masks, will that be the norm going forward?
Well, social distance has become a new normal now, and nobody would like to take a risk to go out without these things nowadays. Actually, so I feel this norm is being adapted by all the food industry people to get going, and people love their food, and I don't think they'll have any challenges to go any far with any restrictions. And there's a lot going to be change in hotel industry and food industry in particular, with so many hygiene aspects and safety aspects that have come in by the government and the global scenario.
So are you going to look at more innovative approaches from the restaurants within the hotels to come up with maybe some compartmentalized, sort of cabins for people to sit in and have their food and experience the food in? So is that going to be something which is going to come up? I think a lot of people will try a lot of innovative things going forward, right?
In fact, a lot of restaurants have already started. Like countries like Sweden, Netherlands, Thailand, they've already opened their restaurants. Uh, in resistance to COVID-19 perspective. There's a restaurant in Sweden which has actually, it does not have any waiters to serve food. The food is kept in a basket from the kitchen and it's pulled through the pulley system to the tables, and guests themselves pick up the food from the basket. Few restaurants in Thailand have got plastic partitions between each table to respect the social distancing norms that are there. And in fact, few restaurants have also come up with, they put televisions to display what is happening in the kitchen, so that the guests are more confident in eating what they are going to eat. So there are a few new things that have been coming up, with also with the new trends that will be coming up after once everything opens up. With be You will be seeing servers with masks, gloves, and looks a little weird, but then we get habitual to such things now.
The next time you check into a hotel, someday, check-in might look a little different. Seema Modi explains. Hey, Seema.
Hey, John. With nearly 3 out of 4 hotel rooms empty across the nation, hotels are doubling down on hygiene measures to ease travelers' concerns. And it starts right as you enter the hotel. Plexiglass at the front desk, while encouraging keyless check-in to minimize interaction with the receptionist. Inside your room, visible signage confirming hotspots like the thermostat, remote control, shower handle have been cleaned. And if you're used to your toiletries being neatly organized on a hand towel by housekeeping, that's likely going away. In fact, Marriott expects a reduction in housekeeping during a guest stay.
No, I actually know of a restaurant in Bangalore, that is a place where I live in, where robots act like waiters. So do you see this trend, taking precedence now with this pandemic on the rise?
Well, this would be a norm, but I won't say that robots will take over humans in such aspect, because hospitality is all about the personal touch that is there, the emotional connect, and it would be difficult to get technical aspect, technology replacing human beings there.
So, do you believe innovation is the way forward, and that is what the restaurants and the F&B industry needs to take a closer look at to succeed in a post-lockdown COVID-19 scenario?
Uh, True adaptability to the changes is a prime here, uh, because the industry is quite hit in this crisis, and people who would be able to adapt to new changes, they will survive. We'll have to rework all on the norms, the policies, approaches towards guest handling, and especially the recipes would be changing as per the new norms. People are getting into well-being and healthy food these days. So all this would definitely change a lot in the food industry.
So, I mean, people love to eat outside. I mean, there's no denying that they love celebrating their special occasions at restaurants and, love eating their favorite food. Now, but the anxiety is as such, and, it's at an all-time high. And, people have apprehensions and, have that, self-doubt in, stepping out to a restaurant. Now, how does maybe a restaurant or a hotel, win back the trust of the people? So, is there any approach to that or a thought process to that?
Well, I believe there is no deficit of trust though, but yes, fear that prevails in everybody. Uh, from my take on this is showcasing the best practices and communicative marketing would be something which will play a very important role in this, in removing the fear from the guests that come into time.
Great. So I totally agree to that. And when do you think the restaurants and hotels should really open? So are we actually prepared right now to open it up, maybe post lockdown 4.0? And what kind of safety protocols you did actually, touch points around, servers wearing gloves and, mask. But is there anything else, beyond that, that the hotels are closely sort of evaluating in terms of, serving the food? And when do you think the restaurants and the hotels should actually open up?
Well, I believe the hotels and restaurant would be sooner or later opening very soon,
Hmm.
because it's high time. Food industry has always been a major contributor to the GDP, and it's very vital to get this industry back into action because it's been hit very badly. And the more we wait, the more scenario worsens for the industry, and it has to come back very soon. There are various trends and service skills that are being monitored very closely, and many aspects of service have been changed. There are a lot of control points that have been monitored, and aspects of the touch points have reduced. People are trying to come up with contactless service, which again is useful, but at times it removes the emotional connect aspect of the guest and the server. So there are a lot of things going on these days. It's a lot of hit and try methods that's going on. Uh, Role plays and things are happening in hotels to come up with the right practice, which would uh, help the guest in confirming with the safety and though not compromising with the service quality and standards.
No, absolutely. You did actually say that the F&B industry is the worst hit, and I think the government really needs to look at this a little closely. Otherwise, the running capital of these hotels and the restaurants, are already, sort of going haywire with no, capital, to sort of sustain and run the whole practice. So, shouldn't the government actually look at this a little closely and come up with some sort of a wage package for people who are actually, reeling under pressure, especially in the food industry? Don't you think so?
Well, yes, food has always brought people together, and but in this world where we are still to come out of this lockdown period, it's going to be really challenging, not just for the industry but for the people involved in the industry. Uh, as I said before, it's a very labor-intensive industry which cannot be replaced by technology, and I mean we cannot expect an Alexa, suggesting us what to have for
Mhm.
dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always the human aspect that is required. A chef who would suggest as per your needs and your eating habits. So I guess government has to come up with some policies to bail us out here.
No, absolutely. I totally agree because a lot of my other friends also, hail from the F&B industry, and I actually, feel their pain. And the government should, closely look at their grievances. I totally agree to that. Now, you did actually talk about contactless sort of, ways of, serving people and making, minimal touch points. And you did say that the emotional touch, wears off. So how does that sort of bring in a perspective to the guests who actually want to actually dine out or eat out? So do they actually also have to embrace this new ways of visiting restaurants, take it as a given that it's going to be a contactless approach and the emotional connect is not going to be there?
Well, humans are the most adaptable species in
Hmm.
this ecological system,
Yeah.
and getting habitual to new norms might be difficult, but it's not impossible. People will get used to such norms, and as I said, food brings people together. So where food is, people get try to skip few things, and if it has to adapt to new norms and eating with gloves on, I guess people would be happy to do it.
Now, it's not a very appetizing thought of, looking at people or servers with gloves and masks. It's not really very appetizing, So, do you think that's the new normal and, people have to just embrace and adapt and there's no other, way forward? Because I totally still believe that, the emotional touch is very, very important, especially in an industry like this. And if that actually sort of wears out, it becomes the experience factor is really not there at the end of the day. You just go there maybe just to fill your tummy and you just get out. So the experiential factor just goes out of the box. It's not there. So what do you think about that?
Exactly, that's where our expertise come in as
Hmm.
food and beverage people. We've been working hard and coming up with service techniques and sequences in which, yes, we'll be practicing all social distancing norms and wearing PPEs and serving food. But then again, we've tried to keep the element where the emotional connect is there. And, people, sooner or later, it will be again as it will go. It's just matter of time when we just have to bear for a few months, and then I'm sure things will get back to normal, and people will be again without gloves and masks.
Really looking forward to that time, when that comes up. So, fingers crossed. So I was reading some article and I actually came through a very interesting piece. And Dubai has sort of already announced that the restaurants at any given point will actually have a 30% capacity, to run their show. So do you think this is a very ideal approach? And will that actually help you, even break even or get you the profits? Because I don't think that's the case.
Well, I guess this is what's the it's expected out of the industry now, with people fearing to go out and dining in a crowded place. So I guess this would be because we've been given instructions and directives that tables between two tables would have about 2 to 3 meters of distance that would be there. So again, the cover capacity of the restaurant reduces definitely. Looking at the positive aspect of this, it is like it will boost confidence amongst the guests, since they know this the restaurants will not be crowded and the hotel or restaurant are taking optimum measures to uh, make sure the safety is not compromised. Uh, Actually, what happens is people don't mind waiting in queues if the food is good. So, waiting for restaurants, I don't think it would be a matter, and it's actually a good thing.
So great. So brings me to a very interesting question about menu engineering, right? The supply chain inventory is obviously going to, get hit, and everybody is expected to, feed the guests, good, nutritious, and healthy food. Looking at the present scenario, because immunity is the biggest factor. So how are your menus going to be engineered, going forward? Can you maybe shed some light on that? I think that's a very, very relevant and important question, especially to you.
Yep. Well, minimalistic cooking will become a trend now, I feel, because budgets will be tight and revenues will be quite low initially. So, working with recipes that are cost effective and bring out the flavors from local ingredients would be the prime important here.
So you're looking at more natural, organic type of food, coming to the table now.
Definitely. Like earlier, also the farm to plate concept was there,
Hmm.
but it's just a concept. Now people are bringing into practice. There are a lot of restaurants which have their own herb gardens growing in their backyards, and people actually love. I have seen places and hotels which have herb garden, and they actually make the guests go to the herb garden, pick their herbs for the dishes. So I guess this concept would be more flourishing now, and people will look at local producers which reduce carbon footprints, and these aspect of environmental thought process also comes in.
And of course, you're going to wear your innovative hat on top of that as well, and come out with maybe a cuisine that nobody would have really heard about. So I think that is also something which would be in your mind, right?
True. Also now, like with people staying back home for so long, without having to have the junk food every day, not going out for parties every day, people are getting used to the ghar ka khana concept as well, and people have got habitual to the healthy eating things that are made at home. So I guess that might be an aspect to look into where people would now prefer avoiding oily and rich food, which are heavy to the palate, and people will prefer home style cooking. That might be a new trend now.
Absolutely. I think I'm always, one for, home cooked food. And I think if that can actually be a new transformational sort of focus from a food and beverage industry, I think a lot of people would actually prefer that. So do you then think maybe non-vegetarian food would be on the decline and people would prefer more nutritious green food? Is that what you see as a trend?
The trend is still on with people going vegan, and we have no meat food. I'm not a great fan of no meat food, uh, because I feel it's not. If you have to be vegetarian, let's be vegetarian, and then going with aspects of commercial cooking. But I don't see that non-veg food would reduce. People love their food and they like to experiment with different cuisines and different tastes and different textures. So they'll be, even non-veg food is healthy if you eat the right things.
And if it's cooked the right way, which you are a master at, so yes.
Absolutely.
Great. So, just maybe a last question around maybe the tourism industry. So now you actually hail from the Taj Group of hotels, which is the Taj Exotica and Spa in Maldives. So, tourism industry is again very badly hit. So, what are your thoughts around that? So any parting thoughts around that?
The industry definitely is hit badly. We've got hotels being shut down, restaurants being shut down with no hopes of opening up again. Luckily, uh, I'm with a brand which tries to excel and grow further. So it's been there, but definitely it's been tough times for Taj as well. Uh, Things will improve slowly, uh, but yes, it'll take a lot of time. It might, God willing, it might be early, but what I feel, it won't be lesser than 6 to 8 months. That will take time to come back to a normal situation. Hopefully, it should come back soon.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. And like you said, it will take its time. And I hope that maybe October, November is a time frame when things, fall back to normal. And that's the peak season time for most of you people as well. So I hope things align pretty well in those terms. So thank you so much, Tarang, for taking some time off and talking to us at Firefly Adda. It was a pleasure having you. Great perspectives, very different from what we've actually been doing, a different industry that we actually brought into the fore. And who better than you to actually sort of articulate the present scenarios and how things are sort of shaping up with the COVID-19 situation. Thank you so much, and we wish you the best, and hopefully things fall back in place, like the new normal. uh, Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.